is shame. It's a shame. Because you don't see that in Nakuru, you don't see that in Nairobi, you don't see that in Eldoret, in Kisumu. So why in Mvita? I mean, those are the things, those are the challenges that pushed me to bring in a different perspective.
So do you believe your track record is sufficient to win you that seat?
Yes. I mean, alhamdulillah, I'm the current biggest employer in Mvita. So that gives me perspective on the states of Mvita. And the fact that I can use those skills to harness and, as I said, I want to create a job center and then, equip the youth with the skills, interview skills, CV skills, placements, so that, because our youth cannot compete with anybody else because they don't have these skills. They don't have references, they don't have placements, and the educational standards are low. So I can put this, I can do a quick job center, collect all the jobs in the county, and then see how I can connect the people personally to the job. So it will be a different perspective, because what the politician is waiting for are jobs from the government, and that's not been coming through.
Okay, we have quite a few challenges faced by people of Mombasa. If elected, what will be your three key priorities, and how will you ensure to enact these changes?
The key priorities are employment, and then health care is a big deal. Water, empowerment, of course, we have a society. Our biggest population in Mvita is also women. So that I'm also looking for a way to empower that part of society. And then we have healthcare. Healthcare is another angle where it's a very expensive thing not to have an insurance. And then our governments have been promising universal care, and nothing has been coming through. What I've said is, I'm actually donating 50% of my salary and locking it to NHIF or universal insurance. So those are the basic things first I want to put in place. And of course, education, tuition, remedial centers, making sure that our public schools candidates can compete with the private schools. So bring in teachers that were taken over by private schools in the evening and the weekend, so that they can tuition our kids. Because as I said before, that in Mvita Primary, last year, only took 3 kids to national schools. So it's the current education standards are pathetic, and that's the future of Mvita. So if the future is not taken care of, then that means there's no continuity. I mean, the society will completely disappear.
Okay. And I apologize that I forgot to say, you can reply in Kiswahili if you want to. It is my Kiswahili which is not so good. So I can be asking you questions in English, and you are free to reply in any language you feel. Okay. What are your views on benefit sharing? Do you believe that resources raised in the country remain in the county and share remitted to the national government, as opposed to all revenue going to national government, which then remits back to its counties? In short, let's say, how will you ensure as an MP that Mombasa residents benefit from the port as a resource located in the county in the same ways that other counties benefit from their local resources?
Yes. I think that's a very good question, because the port is a big employer, and it's one of the most profitable parastatals we have in the country. Now, we know that money goes back to the national government, and it doesn't trickle down completely. And that's one thing that should not happen. I mean, any parastatal that is within that county should contribute to its development in one way or another. So, I mean, that's one thing I'll push to make sure that we get our share, at the port, be it in employment or revenue, or the community, social cooperative responsibility of the community, whereby the port is involved, at least a share of that revenue is involved in the schools, in feeding programs, whatever it is, but then that impact is not there, and nobody is talking about it. So that's very important. Secondly, we know very well that we need to generate more money in the county so that the county can have enough resources. I mean, right now we have issues of the national government remitting enough money to the counties.
Yes.
I mean, there are a lot of pending bills that have not been paid. I mean, we know Kenyans who have actually committed suicide because of not being paid, the pending bills. So, and the biggest angle of that, the biggest problem there is corruption. We know money, the resources are enough, but then they're budgeted in a way that it fills individual pockets. So we can see how our leaders are developed. They've come in for service poor or average, and then after 5 years they are multi-billionaires, buying 2-3 helicopters, luxury cars, mansions. So we know where this resource is going, because these are salaried workers and they should not be this rich. So the issue is not about where the revenue is. The issue is not about revenue sharing. I mean, all these are things that we talk about. It is about users of these resources. And the biggest problem we have is corruption. And until that is taken care of, it doesn't matter how many educated. So we have professors writing these regulations and laws, but then it doesn't matter until the issue of corruption is handled. Nothing will change. We took over this country from the British in 1963 as a third world country. In 2022, we are still a third world country with over 60% living under $1 a day. So I don't think any leader can chest thump and say they've done anything for this country. We are on cruise control, and it's just that it's a country that's just driving cruise control. There are no ideas to change what's been happening, to change the fabric of the society. If you look at basic facilities. I mean, our country is now in debt because we have done mega projects that really have no impact. I mean, apart from our projects are good, but as long as they are structured in a manner where money trickles down on the project. But we know very well our projects are all Chinese, and the Chinese come even with their food. Forget about the trucks, their food, the labor, the toothpick they're using is from China. So nothing trickles down in Kenya. So it is a bad idea to do any mega projects. Because if you look at the poor, I mean, we are a country of wananchi wetu maskini. So it is very important that going forward, we focus on the poor. We make sure the basics are covered: food, water, healthcare, drainage systems, more basic things. Basic things of the society is covered first. So the next 5 years, we don't want to hear about a project. I mean, completely we should stop any project and focus and channel that money or those loans to the basic things in life. Because it's very sad, in 2022, we still call for the donors to come and feed us with maize and used food. So it's very sad that when I was a child, I used to remember a drought in Turkana, and then we have world food coming in and sending us. I mean, now, in 2022, with all this technology, with all these bright Kenyans running around, educated Kenyans, we still have Kenyans dying of hunger. So it's a sad state. I mean, it's a very sad state.
Yeah. Indeed it is, but let's try and see what we can do. Okay, women are a backbone of the society, yet they are underprivileged in all spheres of life, including in the economic sector. Here in Mombasa, I think it's even worse. Women are not recognized that much for their work. In your tenure as an MP, what do you intend to do to ensure that women in the Mvita are economically empowered?
You know, women are now over 50% of the society. So if you leave women behind, you've left behind over 50% of your workforce. So you've actually shoot yourself in the leg. So, I mean, we must understand that dynamic. When we say the parliament is supposed to fight for women, they don't understand that the statistics are actually against any other form of law. So it is very important that actually the women are given 50%, not a third or a quarter of what they say, because they are over 50% of the society, and that's by nature. So Mvita is a critical place. Women have no work. It's a very sad state, and you cannot air on live what the circumstances they go through. But by being door to door, by going around Mvita, I've seen very sad states, and it is very sad. Women are our mothers, they are our sisters, and one thing I've learned: if you see women thriving in a society, that society changes. One of the things we've seen in the first world is women are thriving, women have choices. That society changes because women spending patterns are different than men. They are targeted. They don't exaggerate their spending. I mean, a man will go and buy a helicopter. There's no woman politician who has bought a helicopter. I mean, I'm sure even my Google has not done that. So women have priorities. They're not like men. We are impulsive. We are dangerous in society. So we need to empower women to keep check on what they're
So how are you going to do that?
At this stage, let me just talk about maybe the basic things. Women have I've met women with CBOs, groups. So maybe we start with that. We channel funds to those groups to make sure that if they are a cook-carrying group, or if they sell samaki or whatever they are, mama mboga. So we actually empower the groups, make sure that there's cheap financing, whereby in form of SACCOs, where money is not expensive, because we know everything out there right now is very expensive. But we know the world financing has cheap money to empower women. It all goes down to corruption. So that doesn't trickle down, or that's caught up in a web of corruption, and nothing happens. So we know that. We know that the funding organizations have priorities on women, priorities on societies that are, the weaker societies. So, but that doesn't happen. So, one of the things we will push is that fundings that are meant for women should actually be directed to them. And these fundings should be cheaper fundings, and because we know women are more disciplined, and it's less likely for women to default than men. I can guarantee you, the 15 million Kenyans on CRB, I'm sure 70% are men. So we know that. So we must now start encouraging lending and empowering women who are the majority. Actually, if you look at the SME sector in Mvita, most of them are women. The Marikiti area, the Nawal area, Samaki, Mboga, the vegetables. So 3/4 of these small business people are women. So we must come up with a structure, and I hope if I manage to be elected, it will be easier to sit down with these groups, get their views, and see how we can channel some of these monies to them to empower them, definitely.
Okay. Okwa Mombasa's perspective of the impact of the SGR is that it is directly related to the larger national debt problem. The negative socio-economic situation of Mombasa is because of unstable debt and also the lack of transparency, openness and accountability in public finance management. Okwa Mombasa has petitioned to courts for violations of the Sorry. Sorry for that. For the violations, rights of, the petition to court for the rights of access to information in respect of the SGR agreement and other related documents. What are your view of public participation in respect of public finance management, both in the county and national level? Has public participation been effectively conducted on issues that concerns Mombasa residents? How could this be improved?
That is a loaded question.
Very loaded.
I mean, I can give you a picture. A hyena feeding on a carcass. Can you invite in, others to come and, public participation is meant in a transparent, when there's a transparency situation. But when you actually believe, or your perception is that you want to get this money, to channel it wrongly, then of course you not involve the public. So, we know the SGR was over budgeted for. SGR is the biggest, there are two major, biggest scandals that we've invested in. The SGR and the Lamu port. The SGR was $2 billion over budget. And I don't know what kind of lawyers we have in this country, but then we actually gave out the port as a guarantee.
Yes.
There is no financing like that. Financing is supposed to be sovereign guarantee. So whether the government is supposed to guarantee that. And that's what those are the kind of loans we've been taking for ages. But right now, they've come up with, and that is the problem with the Chinese financing. Because the Chinese financing involves a big part of percentage is given to these people signing these deals. So they came in with a port guarantee. Right? So right now we cannot sell this loan. It would have been easier, this was a bad loan, to sell it cheaply to another organization to take, so that we free our port and get time to sort out our mess, especially during this crisis of corona and unemployment. So but then because we've structured the loan corruptly, there's no way we can sell. So we actually it is a mafia loan. The only way to get out of it is when you're dead. So, and this is done by our leaders. All they did was make money from it. The port, if you look at what the SGR has done, from Mombasa to Nairobi, there are a lot of cities that were thriving, a lot of people that were making a lot of money and living, their livelihoods on this road. It's killed this. And this is a mega project. It's supposed to complement the cities. But, so that should show you that this was a bad idea. Mombasa now, I have about 200 drivers in the port. So I'm actually a port operator. If you look at what's going on, the port operations are actually now almost half. The custom officers are complaining. So what will happen soon is it will just be the SGR, the ship docks, the SGR is loaded, and everything goes to Nairobi and Naivasha. And this is very selfish, because no country thrives on an inland port. No country. So, Mombasa, Mvita is when you're setting up a business, three things that are important are location, location, location. So Mvita is the best location, East and Central Africa. But right now, we're trying to set up Naivasha and Nairobi. Nairobi is crowded, land is very expensive. Nairobi is 60% of Kenya's GDP. So it doesn't need a port. Naivasha supplies a third of the world flowers. So, so these two cities don't need these facilities. This was a very bad idea. And if I'm given a chance to come, and all the parties that are talking right now, putting billboards saying to establish a port, are actually partisan. So we know very well the Jubilee government was behind this. And then what happened? The ODM government kicked in and took over and went to make deals on this. So everybody, all these people are involved. All these people are involved. So there's no way any of these guys, they're just lying by saying we will return the port. They've invested billions in Nairobi, they've invested billions in Naivasha. So there's no way they can bring back the port. What it needs is activism. Well, the port, to return the port, we need activism. Activism meaning you need a leader who can mobilize society. And then peacefully sit down and lock all the port gates, demanding for the rights of Mvita and Mombasa. That is the only way to get this port back.
So how will you address youth participation and women participation in public issues affecting the residents of Mombasa?
You know, the good thing is, I'm the first politician who has actually now done messaging and WhatsApp, social media. What I want to do is, social media is, the youth is, and the social media is a big part of our society. So we will do public participation through that. So we can create forums to get the public involved. And then, so we run an idea and then get views, because that is very important. Because, we know very well, our leaders are on autopilot. Whatever decisions they take are only from them. And it doesn't work like that. You are there for the public. You are there as a custodian of this. So you must involve the public and get the public's views. So that if this project is good, then everything is well. If anything goes bad, then you involve the public, and you give them the ownership of the project. So that is lucky, and that's one thing I'll bring in.
What would you then say are your priority issues to deal with in Vita? What should Vita residents look forward to in the first 100 days of Samatar as MD?
Transparency. What I've said is I will be gazetting the CDF. The CDF is now shrouded in secrecy. So what we'll do is we will gazette it every 3 months on whatever we've done transparently, and not on Kenya Gazette, but we'll buy a page on the local dailies. So the CDF in Mvita will be transparent. Secondly, we know Mvita. The current system that is there is segregative. Many people are segregated on the lines of religion, on the lines of color, and that is one of the biggest problems we have in Mvita. That will be killed, because what I'll do is I'll create grassroots groups, grassroots committees, so that that is representative of everybody, to get them involved on ideas that need to trickle down. So that's very important. So on the committee, on the CDF committee, I'll make sure the youth, the women are represented, the disabled. So I'll make sure that it's actually a representative, because I know the ideas come through people. And once you involve people in a forum, you definitely, as a leader, will get ideas, and they will have ownership of this. So, but what Mvita will get is transparency. And then the issue of unemployment. What I've said is, whoever we can employ, we will employ. Otherwise, what I'll do is, I'll do what another governor has done in Western issue. I will get the youth, get them documentation, and send them to work out abroad. The biggest remittance right now in Kenya we have is diaspora money. So we're tired of seeing of drugs, crime on our youth. So what I'll do is, whoever we can employ, we will employ. We'll try and get the police equipment to come here, the military, the AP. So we'll try and get our share of employment. Whatever else we can't employ, I'm promising the Mvita residents, it was done to me, I was given that chance to be sent abroad. I will do that for the youth here. So whoever is not employed, we'll send them abroad. Because what we know, the first world needs youth employment. The first world needs the youth. It's only Africa and Kenya that plays with the youth. So another thing is, of course, healthcare. Healthcare is very important. We've tried. Our governments have been talking about universal healthcare for a while. I don't think there's money for it, or it's corrupted. So what I will do, I've actually now volunteered my salary. 50% I tied on that. So we'll have about 5,000 to 10,000 people locked on that, on NHIF. I do that for my workers right now. We pay a lesser fee to the NHIF because of the number of people. So we can negotiate that, and of course negotiate contracts with the hospital. So kill the issue of healthcare. And of course cleanliness. Cleaning is next to godliness, as we say. what the most thing, right now, if you look at Mvita, it's very dirty. There are no skips, there are no things, there are no signs. So civic education on cleaning and involving the society, that to be responsible for their environment, to be responsible for their whatever place of work, to be where they live. So we will not depend on the county in Mvita. We will create groups. Of course, that will also bring employment for youth. We will also create groups, make sure that everybody is responsible for his place. Create 1 day a week, or 2 days, every 2 weeks, whatever it is, so that everybody is involved in cleaning. So make it a habit that we are responsible for our cleaning. The other thing is education. The youth, the children. Our education system, the public education system, is almost dead. Apart from bursaries, we need to kit the schools. There are no computers. These teachers are overworked. The classrooms are, overcrowded. So, and that is nearly 60-70% of the student population. So, you cannot say you are solving a situation when you are actually killing the youth that will take over in the future. So, as I said, we'll create social centers in the 5 wards, keep them with internet facilities, and make remedial centers whereby we can run tuition centers for candidates, and that should be the first thing to do. While we are looking at, I've been to most of the schools. I'm currently drilling a hole in Tudor. We've done something in Mvita Primary. So we've done some of these things. They're lacking clean water. Some of them they have electricity issues. So it's very important to get this sorted out.
But I'm a bit concerned about when you say abroad jobs. You want to send them to abroad if they can't get a job here. We see this on social media every day. There are issues with the kind of employment the youth are getting abroad. What kind of employment are you thinking about getting them in there?
I think the question is Middle East jobs. No, I'm not sending anybody to the Middle East. There are no laws in the Middle East. Those are countries that I will never allow encourage anybody to work and work myself. I'm talking about the first one, especially in the Commonwealth, English-speaking countries. We have a lot of Kenyans. I was in Chicago, I was in Atlanta. There are a lot of Kenyans thriving in those countries, and those are the coming. We have a lot of Kenyans in Australia, we have a lot of Kenyans in New Zealand, Canada. English-speaking countries where a Kenyan can come today, tomorrow he's working. And those places are there. That is, you see, the other way is we just get the youth to hang around and languish in this sorry state. Because I'm not saying I cannot come in and solve these problems overnight. So the best thing to do for this youth is get them employed. Whatever is left, get them out of the country. They will have a future. As Kenyans will have their remittance, and then life will go on. We know right now the diaspora remittance is the biggest. Actually, it's our biggest economy right now. So definitely.
Okay. Without touching on the details and case in court on CT2, what are your views on privatization, whether it is of port or public services? Is this an avenue through which public funds are finding their way into private pockets?
A good example is the refinery. When Issa took up 51% of the refinery, it was all shrouded in secrecy. Now we were told the refinery will be rebuilt. This is a private individual coming. The politicians are being flown in by private jet to India and back. And to date, it's now scrapped. Nothing has happened. We know very well. If this was upgraded and a private individual and the government, whoever is involved, had done this properly, today Uganda and Tanzania are looking for money to build a refinery. So we've wasted that opportunity. The current government, the current structures in government, and the current people in this should actually not sell anything public to private, because we don't have the structures for that. We don't have the structures for that. We don't have the lawyers in place for that in government. Unless maybe, what we need to do is, when you're doing privatization, is bring in international lawyers, bring in Pricewaterhouse, bring in this. I mean, we don't do that. So I think we should not completely sell anything public to private, because we know the current people in government have no capacity to be transparent, and they have no capacity to actually, do this in good faith.
Okay.
A good example is actually the ports. I mean, we know we have been told that the MSN, MSC, the shipping line has been given a bag. Private individuals have been given bags. You had the MP for Nyali the other day talking about this and bringing documents, on the contract that have happened. So I mean, nobody's aware of this. So I mean, the normal port is dying. Why sell anything? I mean, we must save first. We save the port, because the port is the biggest employer in cost. So if you bring in, you've brought in the SGR, which is corrupt, and then made deals, it's very sad that we have leaders who only think of greed and hoarding of wealth, because the wealth our leaders have is astronomical. I can guarantee you, when one leader dies, you hear what is left behind. It doesn't make any sense. So, they need to know that they are there for the poor. They need to know that they will be held accountable, be it in this world or the hereafter. They need to know these things, and they need to know that the cries of the poor will never disappear. So our leaders need to understand these dynamics, and we need to. We need. I mean, the other issue is we need, the public needs to now get rid of these leaders. I mean, we must find a way of cleaning these leaders. Any person who has no impact in his society for 10 years should never be allowed back to politics. So those are the kind of laws, if elected, those are the kind of laws I want to bring in. Bring in laws that no public leader should have stakes on the sensitive sectors of society, the port, or fuel industry, or cooking industry, or milk, or whatever it is, sensitive sectors of society. No politician should have a stake in it, because you cannot regulate yourself. You cannot regulate yourself. I mean, right now we know we are subsidizing fuel at 159, and the IMF has said we must take off subsidy. So in August, the fuel will go to 200. So what happens after that? We know these fuel cartels are all in government. We know food industry, Unga now, ugali is 250, 230. Ugali was was the cheap food. Chapati was what we used to wait for in Christmas. So now ugali is now going to be the food for the rich. I mean, I had workers packing ugali. They can't afford it now. So, I mean, immediately fuel goes up in August, because they're cushioning these things because of election.
Yes.
It will go off the roof. So that's what I'm saying. And we know these same politicians are involved in this sector. In cooking oil, we know they're involved in cooking oil. Drinking water, if you look at the regulation of drinking water, they've killed all small drinking water companies. What they want is these big drinking water companies to hang around. And they are all involved in the drink. So one of the laws that we should bring in is no politician. If you want to do business, you stay in business. Don't go to public sector, because the public sector needs compassionate leadership. So if you are interested, if you have shares of your companies that are in sensitive sectors, nobody should be allowed to go into politics or into public sector. I mean, those are the kind of laws that we need in the next 5 years. Those are the kind of laws we need to push in the next 5 years.
Do you believe that Mombasa economy needs to be diversified? What is your vision of Mombasa economy? Do you support diversification of the economy?
Yesterday I was in Old Town. Old Town is a heritage city. We're supposed to celebrate it. It's a very old site. A lot of tourists coming there. If you look at the sewage system, has actually passed. It's actually now a stench. People cannot live there. The residents can actually are crying. So we put car rolls and plant and create parks outside, but Mombasa's heritage is Old Town.
Yes.
Nobody goes to Kongowea Market. No tourist goes to Kongowea Market. Mombasa we should treat it like a resort. And the first place to take care of is Old Town. And make sure that, these buildings are gazetted, they are helped, renovated, they're kept nice because they are it's a heritage, it's actually disappearing. I mean, if these same people are elected, next 5 years, Old Town will be over. It will just be another place. They don't understand this, notion that Old Town can really change the tourism industry in Mombasa.
Yes.
The other thing is insecurity. We only now depending on Safaricom, CCTVs, the monopoly Safaricom. What we need is, we need to put in CCTVs and man them on, this is a tourist city. We should not hear anybody being bullied or gangs operating in place. So, because any insecurity in Mombasa will affect tourism. So we must have security in place. And another thing I want to introduce is community policing. Community policing meaning you use the youth. If you're doing Mvita, if you're doing Majengo, you encourage you group together the Majengo youth, give them training, give them uniforms and walkie-talkies and whatever, give them transportation, pay them an allowance, and help the police in policing their neighborhood. So we must create that kind of policing. You cannot bring somebody from Eldoret and tell him to come and supervise Mvita. He will not. He will only just be responding when there's a crisis. So we need community policing in Mombasa, because Mombasa is a resort city, and we also need, environmental clean individuals who will, get this place sorted out, get this place clean. It's a very beautiful city. It's a very beautiful city. It is the only resort, East and Central Africa. So we can attract a lot of people. We can make a lot of money. Our small businesses can be thriving. Our hotels can be thriving. But then we don't take advantage of it. We put in place thieves. And the thief will only think of his stomach. So the picture is big. Mombasa is a very good, as I said, it is the best location, East and Central. So we should not be complaining of poverty. We should not be complaining of unemployment. Those are things we should not be complaining of. And the other thing is levies. We should have a government that forgives when there is a crisis. Right now, we went through Corona, our businesses are not up and running, but we're still pressuring our business community on licensing, threatening them, shutting them down, our court system on the poor. I went to a magistrate court. A lady who doesn't have an overall is supposed to pay 10,000 or 6 months in jail. So I don't know who creates these laws. I don't know what kind of human beings, come up with this kind of laws, because it doesn't make sense. That lady is already selling 100 shillings, 50 shillings food. She makes 300-400 shillings a day. You're asking for 10,000 because of overall. Naturally, you take her to jail. She's 20 years. She goes to jail for 6 years. She comes out as a criminal. So I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Our society doesn't make sense. Whatever. I mean, we cannot go on like this. We must change, and this is an opportunity now for Kenyans to bring change. And at least, if it is not 100%, we change slowly.
Okay. Most of our youths are into drugs. So, how is it you're going to help them?
Drugs are the underlying problem of the drugs is unemployment. I mean, no mother or father wants their kid or their sons or daughters to be taking drugs. So nobody wants that. I mean, they are somebody's children. So, first we must look at the underlying problem. The underlying problem is drugs, and then fitness. We create sports centers. We have a lot of teachers. Mvita has very good talent. We have taken kids to international, football. Okwiri is a boxer. He's right now training in Atlanta. So we have very good talent. What we lack is, helping the talent. So keep our kids busy, create running paths, yoga, karate, and they're not cheap. Just paying these teachers and a bit of uniform. So these are not cheap things. We have lighthouse where we can do yoga for everybody there. We create a jogging path. So we keep our society active, because an idle society And the youth is full of testosterone. So if you don't keep them busy or give them work, naturally they'll go to drugs. So those are the things that
But those are the ones who are not already in drugs you can help. But the ones who are already addicted, we don't have rehabilitation centers which a parent can afford.
Yes.
They need help.
I mean, actually, most of the rehabilitation centers are run by NGOs and charities. We don't have government structured rehabilitation centers.
No.
We cannot have. You know why we cannot have? Because if a leader can buy a 450 million helicopter, he will never think of rehabilitating a druggist in Mvita. He doesn't have the heart.
That is why our focus is on you, the new people. Yes. We want to see what difference can you bring.
I think the best way is to work with civil society. Our government is bureaucratic. So any politician saying he will bring a solution from government is lying. So the best way is to work with the private sector and civil society, and then get these kids, cleaned up. Get a structured, system where everybody knows where to go for help. Get helplines. There are no helplines. There are no helplines for these kids to call. So free helplines for these kids to call, and and of course, social workers that can visit these houses, talk to these kids, and also mentorship. Mentorship is another thing that's completely missing in society. We need to bring in these mentors, whoever is from this area and has done a bit well and survived life, should come in and tell these kids that the future is bright, the future is good, you don't need to do these things. So we need to bring in all these holistic solutions together, and that leads to leadership. And that's completely lacking in the current creed of leadership. It's completely lacking.
Okay, that's very good. Let's hope for the best and pray that we do see a change in our county. Okay, we wish you well and look forward to what comes next for you. Should you become an MP of Mvita, we will follow up. Kindly remember that we will be following up on your commitments to monitor and support efforts to fulfill the pledge. Well, it was nice interviewing you. I'm Sonia Pritz. I was interviewing Honorable Samatar on behalf of Okoa Mombasa. Thank you.
Thank you very
and
much.
everybody have a good day.
Thank you very much, Sonia. And I would like to request nawaomba kwa unyenyekevu wanati wa Mvita wanipe kura yao, wanipe nafasi hii ya kuwafanyia kazi na tubadilishe Mvita. Salamu alaykum.